So if your body mass index is above 25, that means you're overweight. By the time your body mass index is 30 or more, that means that you're actually obese.
Hello, I'm Francisca, your co-host as always, and our topic for today is obesity in children. I believe this is a very important topic, especially in the time of today. So Dr. Ekuase Sanusi, your one and only trusted pediatrician, is here to, enlighten us about obesity in children. So here, you have the floor, Dr. Sanusi.
Thank you, Francisca. Now, we're going to talk about obesity because it's becoming a problem in our population. Now, what is obesity? In medicine, we use numbers. When we talk about body mass index, that is your weight. If you want to do the calculation, that is your weight divided by your weight in kilograms divided by the square of your height in meters. So if your body mass index is above 25, that means you're overweight. By the time your body mass index is 30 or more, that means that you're actually obese. And obesity is basically diagnosed using these numbers when we talk about clinical care. But sometimes you don't have to use those numbers before you can see someone and know that they're obese. And I tell parents, because a lot of parents in America, we have an obesity problem. We have a lot of children coming in and they have low self-esteem because, I'm too fat and I don't have any friends. But it actually goes beyond just being too fat. I tell parents that it's actually a lifestyle issue. So when you see children that are bigger than they are, a lot of children comfort feed. It's like, I'm bored, I'm going to eat. Or I don't feel good about myself, I'm going to eat anyway because nobody looks at me. Or I don't know what to do, but you know what? I have nothing to do right now, so I'm just going to eat. So obesity is actually the result of a lot of lifestyle changes that have not been made. And children with lack of knowing what to do, they end up eating as it takes the place of, I'm not involved in any kind of sport, I don't do anything, I'm going to watch TV and I'm going to eat. So in the past, in the old days, in Nigeria especially, we didn't have a lot of fast foods like we do now. In the US, there was a lot of government regulations that actually were put in place that actually created this obesity problem. That included the farmers being able to grow more corn, which now ended up there was an excess explosion of corn all over the country. And then there was now a problem with what do we do with all this corn? And because there was excess of corn, they started making corn syrup, which is a fructose corn syrup. They started making drinks. They started making cookies. They started making popcorn. So everywhere you go, you look at things on shelf that have extended shelf life in the US, from your flour to your cookies to your drinks. There's a lot of fructose. There's a lot of corn syrup that has been used to sweeten all these things. So you also, at the end of the last century, people were talking about the obesity epidemic. That supersized me, where you went to McDonald's. When McDonald's started in the early 1900s, there was no Big Mac and those quarter pounders with cheese and all those So a lot of government regulations led to all this thing about obesity, going to the restaurants, going to fast foods. There's a whole story behind all that we're not even going to talk about today. How can we prevent obesity in children? I tell parents it goes back to having a healthy lifestyle. What is a healthy lifestyle? That has to do with everything from what time your child wakes up in the morning to what time they go to bed, what the activities are planned for the day, how much activity they get into. I tell people obesity is just that the child has too much stored energy and we're eating too much. We're eating much more than we can expend. So instead of changing instead of telling your child, you're fat, we have to lose weight, you need to change the lifestyle. You need to change the food. So instead of your child snacking on chips, Cheetos, sour cream and onions, have fruits, plenty of fruits. Have a fruit bowl where your child can have some tangerines, eat some our local fruits here. You can do fruit salads with watermelon, pineapple, pawpaw, bananas. Yes, and most of our fruits in Nigeria is actually organic, so it's actually very healthy. And then meal planning, very important. So instead of your child waking up and eating Cheerios or cornflakes, we have our local pap. We have our moi moi, we have our akara. Those are all whole foods. But before your child eats your papa, and get a tangerine and let your child peel it up and eat. And make sure that your child is drinking a lot of water. Don't have any soda in the house. The American Academy of Pediatrics doesn't recommend soda. But guess what? When your child is sick and needs ORT, Sprite comes in handy. So I tell parents, I say it's okay to have Sprite when your child is having diarrhea. But anyway, that's another talk for another day. So if you're doing meal planning, make sure that there's a whole breakfast. Make sure you're planning your meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Make sure your children are eating a lot of vegetables and fruits. So start your breakfast with fruit first. And then make sure that your child has a meal. Stay away from carbohydrates because that just sits in your child's stomach and makes your child bigger. So if you can do moi moi and pap, yes, pap is carbohydrates, but it's healthy because you're making it from cornmeal. And then for lunch and dinner, I tell parents, if your plate is a round plate, half of that plate should be vegetables, then 25% should be protein, and the other 25% should be your starch. So your starch should not be more than 25% of your meals. And you should have more vegetables and more fruits than anything else. So your child doesn't need more than 3 cups of dairy in a day. And that can be 1 cup of milk, 1 yogurt, 1 cheese, or 3 cups of milk. And that's when your child is growing because they need the calcium and vitamin D for growing bones. So your child should also be involved in some kind of sports. When we were growing up, we used to ride bikes outside. I grew up in the University of Ibadan. And we all had bicycles. We had a bike team. The boys and the girls were always racing. And sometimes some of the boys thought they could overtake cars.
Oh, wow.
I'm not recommending that. That is not a good idea, even if you live in an estate. And at the time, we weren't wearing helmets. We were not wearing elbow and knee pads. We just used to ride, and nobody died of head injury from bikes. But we enjoyed riding our bikes growing up. In fact, we used to be outdoors in different people's yards. We would go through the fences, do all kinds of activity, all kinds of games, all kinds of water games, water sports. We didn't have water guns, but we had hoses and we would spray each other with water. It was just a fun childhood. I tell my children, I say, oh my goodness, I don't know who has enjoyed their childhood like we did. But anyway, that's what we say in our house. So I always tell parents, get your child involved in some kind of sport. Like there's track, you can start running. A lot of schools have basketball teams, swimming teams, soccer. In Nigeria, tennis. Get involved in tennis, even golf.
Basketball.
Even golf. People say it's expensive. You know what's expensive? Having an obese child that ends up having all kinds of illnesses just because they are bored. So let's minimize the TV, minimize the video games, and let's get our children out there in some kind of activity. When they get into activity, then obesity will not be a problem. And that is a major way that you want to change the rhetoric. Now, going out to go eat, personally, I like Thai food and Chinese food, especially in Nigeria.
I think they are healthy.
They are healthy. They stir fry. They use a lot of garlic and ginger. Maybe we'll do cooking classes one of these days. But I love Chinese food and Thai. Actually, Thai more. But I tell parents, when you're doing your meal planning, put a lot of fiber in that. A lot of people are making amala now from cabbage. Oh. You boil the cabbage, you blend it, you put some psyllium fiber, and a lot of children love it. They can't even tell the difference between our regular amala and the amala made from cabbage. So I tell parents, talk with your nutritionist, and then we usually refer our children to a nutritionist that is in-house so that they can go over meal planning. And once you get your child active in some kind of activity, don't tell your child is fat. Just tell them that stored energy needs to be used up. When you go on walks, get sneakers. I have this, what do you call it?
Stopwatch.
No, it's a pedometer, yeah. It's a Fitbit. And in our office, we're always trying to pass 10,000 steps a day. Some of our nurses can do 20,000 steps a day. The average person that is not thinking about it does 6,000 steps a day. I try and do my 10,000 steps, and that's the way you can keep an eye on. Every phone has it. If you go on your phone, you can see how many steps you've done on each day. By the time you're doing a lot of walking, that also makes your body stronger, and that way you don't feel tired all the time. So it's just passive ways of making sure that you are exercising without consciously doing it. If you want to get your child into any kind of sports, do it. If you want to get them a Fitbit, if they're older, especially if they're teenagers, do it. And if you're going on holiday, go visit different places, but go to their natural. I always go to the botanical gardens anywhere, any city I'm in, I must go see their flowers because I'm a flower person. And I like to go to the zoo. I like museums. I like educational places, university, colleges. I like visiting just because that's what we enjoy doing. But I wear my sneakers and I'm doing my steps. Before you know it, you've done 10, 15,000 steps and you don't even think about it. So get your child so used to being active, all the fats will melt away, and make sure that you make healthy choices when it comes to food, water, drinking a lot of water, and just a healthy lifestyle changes. And that's really what it is with taking care of obesity in your child.
So what is it possible for a child to be obese if they have a disorder? Like, I think anorexia is for children that avoid eating because they think they're big, and bulimia
it's a perception thing. Yeah, mental is actually classified in the mental disorders manual, statistical and disorders manual in the US. Bulimia, anorexia is something that a lot of girls go through, even boys now, where they think that they are fat. They look at Vogue and they see the average size model on Vogue is like a size 2. And it's like, oh, I want to be like that. And then they're exercising, they're working out. A lot of girls, where you don't have at least 11% body fat, you lose your period. So many of those girls have no periods and they still think they're good. They are fat, even when they're weighing, even when their body mass index is at a critical level. Some of those children, we have to admit them and make sure that they're eating before they can leave the hospital. And sometimes those children can actually end up very, very sick, and almost some children have died in the past because it was not taken as a serious. So that's the extreme of being obese. And just remember, obesity can come with other things because, for instance, you have a skeletal system that can carry 100 pounds and you are weighing 300 pounds. Before you know it, the bones, children start complaining about, my ankle is hurting, my leg is hurting, my arm is hurting, because your body wasn't created for all that stored energy. The other thing is you might start to get acanthosis nigricans, which is a hyperpigmented skin rash on your neck. And a lot of parents will say, Doc, what do I do about this? And I tell them, look, that is prediabetes, because when you are obese, it's predisposing you to diabetes as an adult. And when we start to see acanthosis nigricans on the neck, that's an indication that, oh my goodness, if we don't do something about this obesity now, you're going to end up with diabetes, which is now needles, type 2 diabetes, which is something that can destroy your kidneys with time. It can destroy every organ in your body. So there's more to obesity than meets the eye, and you want to nip it in the bud for children, get them involved in some kind of activity. Make sure that exercise or activity or sports is a very important part of the daily life. And that way will prevent children from becoming obese adults. And then most people who are obese, they don't go their full lifespan. You see them, they might end up dying from cardiac disease. They might have a heart attack, or they might have blood vessels that are so stretched because of the burden on the heart. They might end up with strokes, with heart attacks, early death. Why? Because of food. So literally, obesity is a disorder where we're actually eating ourselves to death.
So what of children that, like, they inherited this obesity from their, like, is hereditary? How would it?
Now, a lot of people say there's a gene for obesity. And guess what? When you see a family where they're all big, it's the lifestyle. That family was never really into eating healthy. It's really substituting unhealthy food with healthy food. And if you go look through the menu for that family, it's kind of like they've passed those eating habits, those bad eating habits from one family to the other. Some people will say, oh, the grandfather was like that, the great-grandmother was like that. It's just, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And if you do not know, you do not know. But once you get better, what that family needs is a total lifestyle change for both grandma, great-grandma, mom, dad, children. Once you change the lifestyle of that family, a lot of children end up doing well. And then parents too, and grandparents, they start to enjoy life even more, because it's all about lack of knowledge and not doing what you're supposed to do. Now, some people are born with conditions like Prader-Willi syndrome. There are actually a few symptoms that are linked with obesity. And parents are taught by the nutritionist how to choose healthy. So you're substituting unhealthy food for healthy. Unhealthy food will stay in your body and make you fat. Healthy food will pass through. So you can eat 25 different salads and it's not sitting in your body, making your waistline bigger or making your heart overburdened, because that food is passing through your body and you're taking out the nutrients. So it's really about substituting unhealthy for healthy food. And at the end of the day, everybody does well. Some families are big. They have big bones. But I've seen children that were as big as can be. They started running, they entered track, they lost the weight.
And they became
They still had big frames, but they were slim. And their waists came down to, boys and girls, their waists were like as small as yours, even in the midst of them having big bones. So you can be big boned and still healthy and slim. Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much. We've come to the end of today's topic titled Obesity in Children. So what did you learn today? Well, I learned that maintaining a good lifestyle and meal planning is very important in controlling obesity in children. So let us know what you learned in the comment section below. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.